Namaste, my name is Verdeluz from Divine Timing Coaching and want to welcome you to the lunar eclipse, nearly total lunar eclipse of Friday, almost Thursday, November 19th this week. It's at the 27th degree of Taurus, and I want to share all the highlights and potentials for this eclipse with you, the invitations from the cosmos. So I'm going to share my screen so you can see the chart. And first, before I do that, I want to share that this is a partial lunar eclipse, but it is the longest partial lunar eclipse in 500 years, 6 hours long, and it will be nearly total and be very visible throughout the world. So in the Americas, in the northern parts of Europe, in East Asia, in Australia, and in the Pacific. So look up time and date, and you can look up exactly where you are, and the exact hours that this will be visible. It's probably going to be early morning in most of the U.S. and in some of the U.K. as well. So get out, see the lunar eclipse. It's going to be very, very powerful to behold. We had the last one in May. Now this one is at the 27th degree of Taurus. Let me share the chart with you here. Beautiful. All right. So let's enlarge this. It's a super active eclipse this cycle. We've been going through a lot of transits lately that have been very intense. This is, from most astrologers' perspective, the most intense month of the year. And part of the reason is because Mars and Mercury both have been activating the Saturn-Uranus square, which is exact again in December. And you can see Saturn at 8 degrees here. And if you go over here to Taurus, you'll see Uranus at 12 degrees of Taurus. Well, right away, what jumps off from this eclipse is Mars opposite Uranus. And we can also see quite a lot of squares to Jupiter right here with the moon, the sun, Mercury, and Mars is still in a square with Saturn, kind of. So a lot happening here. There is a sort of benevolent aspect, we could say, from Venus and Mars sextiling each other, and Venus trine Uranus. But first, let's talk about the eclipse in Taurus. First of all, a lunar eclipse is always a fulfillment, a culmination, a revelation, a fruition moment. So we want to think back to 6 months before when the new moon was in Taurus. Now, we didn't have an eclipse then, but we are beginning a new series of eclipses with this lunar eclipse. What I mean is that the nodes of the moon are right here at the first degree of Gemini and first degree of Sagittarius, the south node. And this is the story of our collective evolution, the narrative of how we are evolving and our destiny in the last degree of Gemini here, and where the karma is completing its cycle in the first degree of Sagittarius here. And so we are, for 19 months now, we've been experiencing the evolution of education and what that's going to look like, the online space, cryptocurrency, trading online. A lot of people are living more virtually. This is very Gemini. We're moving into this Taurus-Scorpio axis, which is really beginning with this eclipse. And it's going to highlight a lot of big themes, which we could talk for a long time about. But definitely property, virtual property in the spaces online with things like Decentraland and Sandbox and some of these spaces that are becoming inhabited through video games. There's a lot to be said around that. Our values around work, money are completely changing now. And this eclipse will highlight that theme because we have a lot of planets in Scorpio, including Mercury, Mars, and the Sun. And we have the moon in Taurus. And Taurus is the sign of my own values, my own self-worth and self-esteem, and also how I earn resources on my own. So there's a sense of this is my self-reliant nature, you know? And with Scorpio, it's a lot about how I share my resources, how I blend them with others, and I can be very empowered by doing that, but I also have to compromise. I have to adjust. Um, there's more risk there. There's power plays. There's control issues. There's shadow work that must be done, and we've really been moving through that with Mars the last couple weeks, with Mercury the last couple weeks, and the Sun as well. And this moon will highlight the power of Scorpio and Taurus. Um, with Scorpio, we're in this deep psychological journey right now. We're doing this deeper shadow dance, and we're looking at those ways that we are very karmically interwoven with each other. With Taurus, we want to come back into our own selves and into the beauty and abundance that our lives naturally have. And so one of the questions to ask ourselves during this eclipse is, how do I feel abundant in my life? And what can I do within my own body to express that? Can I dance? Can I play music? Can I make a great meal? Can I share in real juicy sensuality? That sensuality can also be highlighted because Venus is the ruler of this eclipse. She rules Taurus. And Venus has this really sweet trine to Uranus right now. And she's also in the sextile, the sexiest aspect in astrology. Venus is sextile Mars in Scorpio. And so she is a more serious sign. She's in a rather, more focused and more mature sign, wanting relationships that feel solid and stable and committed in Capricorn and are just real. They feel very real. They feel like they have some bones to them. And during this full moon, the energy is very flowing with the masculine and the feminine. Mars is in his home sign of Scorpio. And Venus, with the trine to Uranus, can invite us to do a lot of innovative, fresh, playful experimentation in our relationships and also in our creative work. This is a very creative full moon. I mean, Taurus is a creative sign, but it's more of a sense of an appreciation for beauty. The more we can appreciate it, music, dance, all of the arts, and increase our aesthetic cultivation during this time, the more inspired we will be to actually create ourselves in whatever modality that might be. And because of this Uranian aspect with this moon, not only to Venus, but this opposition to Mars, which is a lot more intense, but there is a sense of trying to individuate ourselves and experiment really in a very inventive way right now. It's like we're all reinventing ourselves right now. And so the question to ask is, what is the most authentic expression of myself? And what kinds of actions, Mars opposite Uranus, do I need to take to dare into being more true to myself and to sharing my unique gifts, my offers to the world, my service to the world? And if I'm not feeling empowered enough in doing that, what do I need to do to increase my impact, to increase my influence in the world? That's a very Scorpio question where Mars is now. But it's also this Mars opposite Uranus, which is asking us for really breaking out of boxes and rigid definitions of ourselves. And honestly, this is a challenging aspect. They like to say that Mars Uranus, is a firecracker waiting to go off. It can be very volatile, and this whole week, this energy can be extremely electric. Uranus is a force of rebellion and defiance because it wants us to be, expressing in a very individualistic way, in a very freedom-loving way. Well, when you add the god of war and aggression and passion in the most challenging aspect in opposition, you could see some really dangerous, potentially dangerous connections going on here. With Mars Uranus, we may see some extreme energies or dramatic energies in the world. You might see some violence taking place or violent outbursts. A lot of protests could happen with this energy. Remember always that we're in the full moon. We're not only the full moon, but the most powerful full moon of the year, which is always the lunar eclipse, plus this Uranian energy coming in. dramatic change needs to be embraced by all of us right now. And so that change, we want to initiate that process as if we are on the battlefield, Mars. But what we're moving towards is Uranus, which is a sense of greater freedom in our life. What feels more like this is my path of liberation, and and it's really aligned with my values, right? The values I want to adopt at this stage of my life, and maybe those values have been going through a big shift, and they probably will through this eclipse window over the next few weeks and into the Venus retrograde coming in the middle of December and all of January. And as the eclipses continue to unfold in Taurus and Scorpio, we're going to be doing a lot of value reorientation. High degree of individualism is associated with this transit. We may feel extremely impatient, and we can easily create friction. Um, and friction can also lead to anxiety. Anxiety can lead to friction and tension. So if we're feeling nervous, if we're overwhelming ourselves with doing too much, this can create that sense of anxiety or worry. And then we can actually project some of that energies onto those that maybe are very close to us, our partners or our family members. We need to be very careful to not be very reactive with this transit, and instead let it motivate us to rupture our own selves with what has come before that no longer feels like it's part of what is emergent, right? This Mars opposite Uranus is very future oriented. It's and it moves very fast, and so that can be great when we are accelerating towards our our goals. It's like an extreme sports kind of energy. You think of like snowboarders doing like flips off the half pipe and breaking world records, that kind of thing. But we can also break bonds and really disconnect from people in a very cold way during this cycle. So we want to remember to be just in this process and to be um, to try to take a breath, as the Stoic philosophers would say. If we are getting angry, take a few deep breaths and then speak. Right? Don't send that text or that email or that phone call right away. Right? Let the energy simmer down if you are feeling really combustible with this um, energy, and because it is so big and strong. You know, part of what we can do is tame some of that energy um, with uh, with coming back to acting with integrity and having respect for those we may disagree with, or a situation that may feel uncomfortable. Um, if we can treat those that we're around with dignity, even in the difference, that can go a long way right now. And on the other hand, if we can't, the ruptures, the separation that can come from this can also go a long way. They always say that the ripple effect from eclipses can be, for 6 months to years and years out in the future. And that's why the Tibetan Buddhists teach us to try to do more meditation, compassionate service, and just be more in alignment with our deep self, with our true self, with cosmic consciousness, or with emptiness. Um, However, your spiritual path keeps you connected to source or to interdependence. Increase that during the eclipse window. That's the goal that Tibetan Buddhists state during this time, and that we really see as important, because some things could get out of hand. Jupiter is in a big square to a lot of planets during this, and whenever you see Jupiter squares, there's a lot of positive things that can come from that. We can be very inspired. Jupiter square the sun and moon. And we can grow into new capacities, new possibilities, but we can also get overconfident and over dogmatic about a perspective that we hold. And with this Mars Uranus, that could be, again, very tense. Um, so, yeah, and remember, there's a lot of fixed energy in the sky. And fixed energy naturally is stubborn, Taurus, Scorpio. And so we want to allow ourselves to, you know, relax some of that and let in something that does feel more inspired and new during this cycle. Um, I want to mention another very important thing with this eclipse, and it has to do with a fixed star. And this fixed star is at 27 Taurus. And it's quite a well-known star, and it's well known for being one of the most challenging stars in the sky historically. It's actually called the demon star traditionally, and it's called Algol. Algol is connected mythologically with the head of Medusa from Greek mythology, and this is rather interesting, and we could spend a long time talking about this myth and how it might be being rewritten at this time. So first of all, we get the word ghoul, as in these like dark forces, the undead, the ghoul from Algol. It's an Arabic word, um, and um, and actually we get the word alcohol from here. This is quite fascinating. Um, the Arab word for alcohol means the demon, and so there, alcohol actually dries us out, and it literally petrifies us, and kind of can turn us into zombies, we could say, if we're not careful. So we have to be very aware with this star being hit exactly by this eclipse, to not literally lose our heads, which is what happens in the mythology with Medusa. Perseus cuts off the head of Medusa. Now, what do we know about Medusa? Well, she was actually a temple priestess, a virgin priestess. And she was a temple priestess to the virgin goddess Athena, goddess of wisdom, but also of war, strategic war, and justice. Well, as the story goes, um, she, uh, Medusa was being pursued by Poseidon, god of the sea, who, like his brother Zeus, was very, you know, very apt to being with, whoever he wanted to be with. And in this case, when he saw Medusa, who was known to be very beautiful, um, the story goes that in the temple, he raped her. So she was being pursued by him, and he caught her, and he raped her. Now, um, Athena sees this, and she's seeing that her temple is being, defiled through this act, and she puts this curse onto Medusa that she will uh, she will live eternally, but she will have stakes in her head for hair, and that whenever someone looks at her, she will be turning them into stone, and so she will never actually be, kind of worshipped or honored by a man in her life. And so this is very tragic, right? And then part of the story goes that Perseus, the great hero, actually decapitates Medusa in one of his battles and returns the head to Pallas Athena. Pallas is her Roman name, for use as a shield in battle. And so actually they come back together, right? They team up again, Athena and Medusa, which is kind of interesting, and become almost like an invincible force. There's a lot of layers to this story that I think we should unpack and meditate on during this full moon, because one thing is that it speaks to why is it that we have, you know, um, the temple priestess who is in the story running to the temple to garner protection from the goddess that she's devoted herself to, which is Athena. And then, you know, she's taken there by Poseidon. And Poseidon is not blamed for this, but Medusa is. And Medusa is cursed. And is it just because Athena is the niece of Poseidon and can't, do anything about this? Or what is this about? And why is it that the masculine presence is not in any way responsible for this? And we don't hear that part of the story very well. Um, is it who's writing this story, right? This is very interesting to consider at this time of rewriting all of our myths, And what does this say as well that um, you know this idea of truth and of beauty coming together? I always think of Algol, the star, and this idea of staring and turning one into stone. I think of it in a much more positive way, which is the idea of the mirror that reflects back the truth. And so when I see Algol in charts, it's something that I consider as what is um, this person or that someone who has this star, how much are they reflecting something that is so true that the beholder of that, the in essence they could turn to stone um, if they don't really acknowledge the layers and the levels of truth. Um, if they're willing to actually own and acknowledge what's being reflected to them. I mean, it's serpents in the hair, and serpents are always connected with medicine and regeneration, sexuality, and healing. And so that is also interesting, right? Because the healing power of truth. Um, it could also be, whenever we are staring deeply into another's eyes, we tend to melt the ego away. And so we could look at Medusa as well as like an ego melting process, and this star of Algol like that. Um, it's a consideration. Um, Also, the idea of surrender. I mean, in this story, she's not to blame. She's raped in this process. Um, but what is her power? And that's the question here around this idea of reflecting truth. At least this is one perspective that I have. And it is interesting that Algol comes up a lot with artists. Um, and actually Medusa, the word Medusa is connected to medicine, um, and Medea, goddess Medea, and media, communications, right? Um, but you have some really famous musicians and pioneers. Trent Reznor, who's actually won a Grammy for scores, but also, of course, Nine Inch Nails. And you have Brian Eno, who's one of the founders, really, of the ambient, movement in music in the early '80s. Um, you have Eric Satie, who also was doing very almost contemporary like music, many decades ago, very contemplative, piano, spacey type of music. And so you have this very strong creative force. We also have the story of the Pegasus born out of the blood of Medusa. Pegasus has always been associated in mythology with poetry and poets and also just the creative process in general. So something to consider again during this full moon is the power of Algol, Medusa, the mythology. Um, where is this moon landing in your chart? 27 degrees of Taurus, that's going to be very highlighted. Is this a house, an area of life, or a planet for you that is asking for a sense of fulfillment and fruition and completion and ripening during this full moon? And what is your creative process like at this time? And is it helping you to individuate, to self-actualize? Maybe you need to take some risks, not unhealthy risks, not cold, overly defiant risks, but kind of rebel against anything that's been stuck in your life and invite in the new and the fresh and the experimental. So I hope this is a exciting eclipse that you'll get out under it and see it, and wishing you all well until our next eclipse, the big solar eclipse coming around the 3rd of December. Better Loose Divine Timing Coaching. Namaste.